My name is Thomas, and I love dirt. Not the kind you sweep off the floor, but the rich, dark earth that smells like rain and secrets. I've been a gardener in the small village of Willowbrook for as long as I can remember. Every morning, I wake up when the sky is still pink, pull on my old boots, and walk to the community garden behind the church. The garden is my favorite place. It's where I feel most alive. Rows of tomatoes, carrots, and sunflowers stretch across the land. Bees hum lazily, and birds sing in the oak trees that surround us. I know every plant here like they're my friends. When Mrs. Baker's roses wilt, I know it's because she forgets to water them. When Mr. Lee's lettuce turns yellow, I tell him it needs more sunlight. But my pride and joy are the sunflowers. They grow taller than the church fence, their golden faces always turned toward the sun. Children from the village come to stare up at them, laughing as they try to guess which one is the tallest. I plant a new row every spring, and by August, they're giants. One chilly March morning, I noticed something strange. The soil in the sunflower patch felt wrong. It was clumpy and dry, not soft and moist like it should be. I knelt down, pressing my palm into the earth. "What's wrong with you?" I whispered. A few feet away, a single sunflower seedling had sprouted early, its tiny green leaves trembling in the wind. It looked weak, like it might snap at any moment. I frowned. This wasn't normal. The other plants seemed fine, but the sunflower patch felt empty. Like the soil had given up. The next week, things got worse. More seedlings sprouted, but they were thin and pale, as if the life had been drained from them. Even the weeds looked sickly. I tried everything, adding compost, watering extra, singing old nursery rhymes. My grandmother swore plants loved music. Nothing worked. One afternoon, Mrs. Baker found me kneeling in the dirt, my hands covered in mud. "Thomas, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice soft. "The sunflowers," I said, shaking my head. "They're not growing. I don't know why." She crouched beside me, her floral dress brushing the soil. "Have you checked for pests? Sometimes beetles lay eggs in the roots." I nodded. I looked. No beetles, no aphids. Just dead soil. Mrs. Baker frowned. "Maybe the soil is tired. You know, land needs rest too. Maybe you've planted sunflowers there too many years in a row." I hadn't thought of that. Sunflowers take a lot of nutrients from the soil. If I kept planting them in the same spot, the earth might be exhausted. But where else could I plant them? The garden wasn't big, and every corner was already claimed by someone's vegetables or flowers. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The sunflowers were special. They brought the village together. Without them, the garden felt incomplete. The next day, I visited old Henry, the retired farmer who lived on the edge of town. His backyard was a jungle of apple trees and berry bushes. He knew more about soil than anyone. "Tired soil, eh?" he said, scratching his beard. "You need to rotate your crops, Thomas. Let the land heal. Plant something else there for a season, beans, maybe. They'll put nitrogen back into the earth." "But the villagers love the sunflowers," I said. "They'll be disappointed." Henry smiled. "Change is hard, but sometimes it's necessary. Tell them you're giving the soil a rest so next year's sunflowers will be even brighter. I sighed. He was right. That evening, I stood in front of the community board at the garden gate and pinned up a note, "No sunflowers this year. The soil needs rest. Thank you for understanding." The next morning, the note was covered in angry scribbles. "We want our sunflowers," someone had written. "This is ridiculous," said another. My heart sank. A week later, a storm hit Willowbrook. Rain poured for hours, turning the garden into a muddy lake. I rushed to cover the vegetable patches with tarps, but the wind ripped them away. By the time the clouds cleared, half the plants were ruined. The villagers gathered in the garden, their faces grim. Mrs. Baker's roses were flattened. Mr. Lee's lettuce floated in puddles. "This is your fault," a man shouted. It was Mr. Higgins, the baker. His prized pumpkin vines were destroyed. "If you hadn't messed with the sunflowers, we'd have had better luck." I opened my mouth to argue, but no words came out. Maybe he was right. Maybe I'd made a mistake. The next morning, I went to the garden before dawn. I expected to find more damage, but instead, I saw something that made my breath catch. In the old sunflower patch, tiny green shoots poked through the mud. Dozens of them. They were thin and fragile, but they were alive. I dropped to my knees. The storm must have washed away the tired topsoil, revealing fresh earth beneath. The sunflower seeds I'd planted weeks ago had finally found what they needed. Over the next few weeks, the shoots grew taller. They weren't as strong as usual, but they were stubborn. I watered them gently, talked to them, and even played my harmonica, a silly habit, I know. By July, the sunflowers stood as tall as the church fence. Their golden faces turned toward the sun, just like always. When the villagers saw the sunflowers blooming, their anger faded. Mrs. Baker brought me a jar of honey. Mr. Higgins apologized with a loaf of bread. "We should celebrate," said old Henry. "A sunflower festival. Music, food, games, it'll cheer everyone up." The idea spread like wildfire. The villagers decorated the garden with lanterns and ribbons. Children hung paper butterflies from the sunflowers. On the day of the festival, the garden buzzed with laughter. Mrs. Baker served lemonade, and Mr. Higgins baked sunflower-shaped cookies. Even the mayor showed up, praising the miracle of the sunflowers. As I stood by the fence, watching everyone dance, old Henry clapped me on the back. "You did good, Thomas," he said. "The soil, and the village, needed this." I smiled. The sunflowers swayed in the breeze, their golden petals glowing like 1,000 tiny suns. For the first time in months, the garden felt whole again. Later, as the sky turned pink and the stars began to peek out, a little girl tugged my sleeve. "Mr. Thomas," she said, holding up a crumpled sunflower. "This one's my favorite. Can I keep it?" I knelt down and handed her a seed. "Plant this next spring," I said. "And you'll have your own." Her eyes lit up, and she ran off to show her mother. That night, as I walked home, I thought about the sunflowers. They'd survived tired soil, angry villagers, and a storm. But in the end, they'd given the garden, and me, a second chance. Maybe that's what growing things do best, remind us that even when everything feels broken, there's still a seed waiting to bloom. The next morning, I returned to the garden at dawn. The sunflowers stood tall, their faces turned east, ready for the sunrise. I pressed my palm to the earth. It felt warm, alive. "Thank you," I whispered. And somewhere, deep in the soil, I swore I felt a reply.